Welcome to BS session 123. Are you afraid of the dark? Maybe that would change if you could see in the dark. Let's shed some light on this subject, shall we?
Yes, let's do that.
This right here has the ability with a 30 caliber clip to disperse with 30 bullets within half a second.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
You're listening to your weekly dose of BS, Ballistically Speaking. The Ballistically Speaking Podcast.
Couldn't help
I
it.
think we should do an entire episode with a speech impediment, every one of us.
What's up, guys?
So, Ray, Opfor Night Solutions.
Please
What's
stop.
that about?
Well, I'm so glad you asked.
Sometimes I hate myself.
I like
Opfor Night
that-
Solutions.
You don't have to actually answer it. It's okay.
Hold on. Whoa.
Yeah, no, you know what?
Easy.
I don't
Ray.
even need to be
Ray,
here.
Ray.
You
We'll
guys
be
just
here.
ask questions, and then I'll just nod my head. Yeah.
We'll submit
Ray
them in
the
writing.
disruptor.
And yeah. I
You're
was going to
ruining
say
our
that
chi here, our
I
flow.
like that we made fun of Mike on the air for screwing up the read, and I only got made fun of off the air for screwing up the read.
You
Makes me
also
happy.
made it way worse. You said it way worse. Your verbiage was not proper.
My verbiage.
You put the accent on the wrong syllable.
It's the emphasis. You
There
don't
go.
accent syllables.
Tomato, potato.
Tomato,
Let's get into
potato.
it. Let's pay some bills.
Okay, you first.
Roger that.
All right. Our featured sponsors tonight are brought to you by Callsign 66, Canada's best rifle training. Welcome to the Brotherhood. Book a course now at callsign66.ca and follow them on Instagram at callsign66, all one word, and on Facebook at C/S66.
Bueno. Ribstone Gunsmithing, craftsmanship done right. Contact Oscar, the guy with the C in his name, Oscar, at ribstonegunsmithing.ca and breathe life back into any firearm.
Finish the read.
No, that's
Sound
all I
out
got.
every single letter.
Oscar at ribstonegunsmithing.ca.
Yes.
That's all
You
I got.
missed the- Oh, Oscar also has a new book out titled Rust Bluing in the 21st Century.
Oh.
Find it on Amazon.
I have an old version.
Oh, you should open today's show notes.
Bah, I only have one
We're-
screen.
We're also brought
And
to
it's
you by March Scopes Canada. The Dion Optical Design line of rifle scopes has a scope for all of your hunting and shooting needs. Find Doug and Niza at marchscopes.ca.
And we also have Apex Optics. When you buy Apex, precision comes standard. Check out all the fine competition rifle scopes, red dots, and binoculars at apexoptics.co. Just a quick note, Apex is tariff-proof. Canadian and international orders ship direct from their Calgary warehouse, and American orders ship from the great state of Texas. No tariffs, no hassle.
And the crew that's been with us right from the start, EM Precision Rifles in Vegreville, Alberta, building Canada's finest precision rifles. Find Shane and Steve on Facebook, Instagram, and on their website at emprifles.ca.
And Bolt Action Coffee, bringing specialty coffee to the precision shooting world. Order coffee and merchandise at boltactioncoffee.com.
And we have our friends at Odell Engineering. Pick up a Canuck shotgun, Bergera rifle, or Apex ammunition from your local distributor and tell them Phil sent you. Look them up on Instagram, Facebook, and on their website, odellengineeringlimited.com. Just a quick note, they had to start a new Facebook page, so make sure you want to head over there and make sure you're following that. And stay tuned for some upcoming content involving the Canuck Wrangler.
Wrangler.
Hopefully everybody got over the feeling that the new Facebook page was a scam page. I can't
was
believe how
so
much attention
hilarious.
that got. Oh my god.
You like the naivete,
Yeah.
like just like it's like old people trying to program VCRs.
You know what?
No,
wonder-
this is new and scary. I don't trust it. No, guys, it's okay. I work for the
I
company. It's
wonder
all
if
right. This is
any of us
actually
could actually.
legitimate. I don't trust you. You look new and scary. Anyway,
Yeah, right. Can any of us program a VCR anymore, even though some of us may have done it at one time in our lives?
I had
Something
to
about
not
Channel
that
3,
long
right?
ago.
what's that, Ray?
Something about Channel 3, blue screen.
You have it set to channel 4.
Damn it.
Ray remembers.
All right, our final sponsor support is Sterling Arms International, home of the R18 Mark III and the R9. Contact them at sterlingarms.com. Look out for the R9 arriving at a store near, holy Jesus, near you.
Mhm.
Going fast. Are they still in restock status?
So what I've been told is that
constant.
they are trying to ramp up production as much as they can, as quickly as they can. And if things hold true, they should be regularly supplying retailers across Canada within the next like 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully.
That's some good
Beautiful.
I
They
can
are
tell you
good.
this. I was down at North Pro Sports yesterday buying some 44 Magnum ammunition for my 357 lever gun. And I was talking with them while I was there. And I asked them about the R9. I said, like, have you guys been able to get the R9 in? And they said they've had 3 orders of R9s. At first they ordered, I think he said like 6 of them, and he pre-sold them before they arrived. So they said, okay, well, let's double the order. Let's order 12 of them. They got 12 of them in. They pre-sold all of them before they arrived. And they said, you know what? Let's just order 20 of them. They ordered 20 of them, and they pre-sold all of them before they arrived.
Holy cow.
So that's one example from one retailer in kind of the middle of Canada. I can only imagine that every retailer that's been getting the R9 in is probably pretty much the same. And they also told me, so that they're like the R9 is selling as fast as they can get it in, and the Henry Homesteader is selling just as fast.
I mean,
The difference being,
well, let's face it, that is pretty much the only corner of the market that's left.
It is
not burning.
Yeah, I think the difference being that I don't think that they're getting, what is that, 38 Henry Homesteaders in a matter of a month and a half. But it would be nice if they could. I'd like to see as many of both of those rifles sold across the country as possible. Hey, S&J Hardware has them in stock now. How about that? In Belleville, Ontario. Does S&J do online retail?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
How do they have some left? That's very weird.
It comes in, it goes out of the shop. That's how the whole business thing works.
No.
There's some freight involved.
Some money changes hands.
Elite retailers sell it before it hits the shelves. That's how real business is done.
Look at old Boone here. This guy's living on the edge. Going back to our VCR discussion, I didn't even set the clock on the VCR. Fucking guy must have 9 lives.
I too like to live dangerously.
I had to use a VCR not long ago because my bread maker that we found in my house had a instruction tape, and the instructions were VHS.
Sorry, can we just revisit that you found a bread maker in your house?
Yeah, the old owners just
How
generally
tall?
I was cleaning out the attic the other day, and you'll never guess what I found up there.
Hey, I have fresh bread. I don't care.
Okay, you guys may or may not care about this, but you just reminded me of something. I was watching. I've been sick for like the last 11 days, so I was lying in bed for a whole bunch of it, and I was watching YouTube pretty much the entire time. And you know those videos where people go through like old abandoned houses and mansions and commercial buildings and malls, and they kind of wander through them, and it's like a whole thing on YouTube. They basically break onto the property and trespass, and then they film their trespass, and they get millions of views on YouTube. There's these two guys that I forget the name of the YouTube channel, but they found this old manse in Italy, and it's abandoned and all dilapidated, and they're walking through it, and they realize as they're going through this thing that this is the family home of Alessandro Volta. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
What are the important measurements in electricity?
No.
Amps
Where was this?
and
We got
for
you,
our
volts.
audio listeners, you can say it
Move.
out loud. Volts. What are volts named after?
Electricity.
Grr.
Fuck's sakes. They're named
Alexander
after
Graham Bell.
yes, they're named after Alexander Graham Bell. No, they're named after Alessandro Volta. He also invented the battery. Okay, so they're wandering through
I
this
want to see
thing, and
proof.
I'll get you the link. They're wandering through this thing, and they realize that this is Alessandro Volta's home, and it for some reason has been abandoned. And like his modern family crest is like all over it, and like the battery that he invented is a part of the family crest. And there's these like massive marble busts of Alessandro Volta, and they found like old writings and diagrams of like the original battery, the voltaic stack battery that he invented. And they found this guy's house. It's been abandoned and like is falling apart in Italy with all these like historical things just sitting inside of it, getting ruined.
Okay, what era would that have been when Mr. Volta supposedly
1800s.
harnessed the energy from the gods?
It was the 19th century. There's 18 something or another. 1870 something, 90 something. I don't know.
And they're honestly expecting people to believe that that's remained that untouched until now. Until
Well, it's just his family home.
Bullwinkle YouTubers stumbled upon it.
Well, there was also evidence that his family was like living in it after he died. Like there were photos from the 1920s and from the 1940s and the 60s and stuff like that. But at some point in the later part of the 20th century, whether his family couldn't afford the upkeep of the home anymore, like this happens, then and these massive homes just get abandoned like all over Europe.
We should talk about something that's modern that takes batteries.
Well, fine. I don't care.
This is exciting for me.
Well, didn't we bring
We're
Ray
gonna
on
pick
here
this up
to just
again
listen
after
to my bullshit?
We're getting back to this. Yes, I'm here to talk about flashlights, guys.
Let's do that.
Excellent. Ooh, look
Okay,
at the
Ray.
time.
Now I want to know who's Ray, who's Opfor. Let's do it.
Cool. Yeah. Opfor Night Solutions. We are a night vision assembly house in Ontario here. We're just north of Toronto. So we take components from various manufacturers all over the world and do our assembly in-house. And as business has been growing over the last few years, we're getting more and more into the manufacturing side of things and actually getting that back end so that we can have devices with our own components as much as possible all the way down to production.
So I'm going to open with the first just question, because I hear this a lot, that it's a rumor that night vision's not actually legal in Canada. So is night vision legal for your average civilian owner to possess?
Absolutely. Yeah. So night vision is legal. I should put a caveat on there. There are some restrictions from the Defense Production Act about what night vision civilians can own. So there is some regulations there, which basically stipulates that if it's an ITAR controlled device, so American, you're not, even as a civilian, even if it came into your possession innocuously, you're not supposed to have it. That said, there's tons of that out there, and it's not particularly enforced. But yeah, for the Gen 2 stuff from Photonis and from NNVT, which is what we sell to the commercial market, that's entirely legal for civilians to own. It's just the American Gen 3 stuff that's a controlled good, really.
And is that
Where the heck
controlled
did
on our
that
end?
come from? Is that just a misinterpretation of the hunting regulations or something?
That would be my expectation. That it's a misinterpretation of of those regulations to just kind of extrapolate it to just possession of the devices itself. But the devices themselves are 100% legal for civilians.
Interesting. Sorry, Chris, I cut you off there.
No, that's okay. You were asking a very similar question to what I was asking, and it's basically answered. Yeah.
Because just being in a gun shop, the topic would come up and like, oh, you're not supposed that's not legal. You can't have night vision. I'm like, I bought it.
Yep.
I remember the first night vision device I bought was the old, like, you could buy it at Canadian Tire. It was like Night Owl or something. And they were very specific not to aim it at the sun or something.
yeah. That's pretty much rule one of anything night vision related.
So it'd be like generation 1.
Yeah, the old Gen 1 stuff. So night vision's come a long way from some of those old devices where you basically have to have an IR illuminator to see anything worth talking about. Good analog night vision, Gen 2 and Gen 3 are honestly, they're more or less the same. There's just some slight differences in tube architecture in terms of what they use for their photocathode. Everything else is really the same between Gen 2 and Gen 3. And a lot of the Gen 2 stuff now is it's not quite there with the American Gen 3, but it's right there in terms of performance. And
So
in some ways, better.
The natural follow-up question that Uke is already asking in the chat, so we might as well get to it right now. He's one of our American friends, by the way. That's why he says use guys. But what about IR, infrared?
So like IR, so in terms of like lasers and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think he's just wondering if we're allowed to have it.
Yep, 100%. So again, there's a few things where it's restrictions, like laser output power is regulated by the Canadian government, so you can't have stuff over a certain wattage, just for eye safety, particularly with IR, because you can't see when an IR laser's on. You might feel a little bit of heat, but you can do some real damage to your eyes with a full power IR laser. But yeah, we sell laser aiming devices for all sorts of stuff, for law enforcement, but also for civilians who want it. Airsofters buy a lot of them as well because they're all shooting at night with their airsoft guns. So yeah, IR lasers, IR strobes, all that sort of stuff, fully legal. Yeah.
Because we're so often designating targets for an airstrike, we need the full power.
Yeah. So yeah,
I have a few items on my list that would be appropriate for.
Right.
Please don't elaborate. I don't want to. I don't want the heat for being associated with you.
I think we've covered that.
Didn't we go over a bunch of that last episode?
Yeah,
I don't know. I wasn't here.
I think I kind of outed myself more than I intended.
Did you? Do I have to worry?
No,
it's fine.
No, I just got a little bit passionate about a few things.
Uh-oh.
Should we do it again?
No.
Well, no. I'm wondering. So Boone says he may have a full power IR. I don't know why he's wording it that way.
Deniability is probably a good thing on that.
Is it? Do you have deniability when you word it that way? No. I'm wondering how he. No, I don't need to know.
Just jokes, bro.
Yeah,
not that I'm a lawyer, but I would just say, I have access to the full spectrum of light because it's a wavelength that we can't control, really.
That's right. Yeah.
Allegedly. If you're going to use plausible deniability, at least spell it properly.
Boone sounds like Mark Carney trying to tell everybody that Donald Trump respected Canadian sovereignty in his conversation. Bum. All right, carry on, Mike.
Carry on. Yeah, I have questions. I have a whole list of questions for everyone. And
give her.
So, digital versus analog, like it's 2025. Basically, everything is digital. Mm-hmm. Is digital better than analog when it comes to night vision?
It's not even close in terms of performance. Any videos you're seeing online, they've staged it in such a way that it looks good. Anything digital night vision, it's essentially a cell phone camera sensor that's been tuned to try to see a little bit of IR wavelength, but you got all of the drawbacks for it, right? So you've got the processing speed for the digital sensor, which is then going to a digital screen. So you've got the refresh rate. So all of those things create input lag, which when you're wearing it on your head, as you turn, you're actually seeing the image that's a little bit further behind you, right? So that creates a disorienting feeling. And even with higher refresh rates, they just can't see into the dark the way analog stuff. Analog stuff is very, very, very precise manufacturing. Rare earth metals that go into it. It's in a vacuum sealed tube, and very, very precise fiber optics that are in there as well that allow basically, without getting, try not to get too technical here because we said, oh, we're not going to dive too much into it. But basically,
No,
what
get
happens?
technical. Do it.
Yeah, basically what
cares?
happens is one, like a few small electrons come into your night vision tube, and they start bouncing off of the microchannel plate. And every time they bounce off the wall, they knock a few more electrons loose. So what ends up happening after it's bounced off the walls a bunch of times is you've got not just a couple electrons, but you've got a lot of electrons, which the tube is then able to, using electricity, convert into a viewable image. So it's actually amplifying light, and it's doing it essentially at the speed of light. So you're seeing 100% real time through your tubes, which is like that's what makes it incomparable, right? It's actually able to amplify. It's not just trying to scrape as much out of it and crank up the ISO or whatever all these cameras are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's physically doing it rather than using software and algorithms to enhance what the physical limitations of the lens is.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay.
So and that's
Sorry. Let's delve into that a little bit more because I don't care about not delving.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, you motherfucker. Do we know? Because this is something that I had a conversation with, and it was a relatively unintelligent conversation, not just because I was involved in it, but mostly because I was involved in it. And we were talking exactly about that. And the guy that I was talking with, he was saying that like he was wondering if that was a thing maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he was kind of wondering, like, with today's technology and the advancement and how quickly technology is advancing, is that something that maybe you would have had several milliseconds of delay 10, 15 years ago, and now you're having like a quarter mil of a second? Like, do we know how much delay we're getting with the modern digital stuff? And
yes.
also,
So
we
yeah.
know
So
how far
the
it can see?
refresh rates and the processing speeds, processors, everything's getting faster, right? So
Mhm.
all of that processing is unquestionably getting faster. But the other side of that too is right now that requires more power consumption sometimes. So
Yeah.
battery life's not always that great. But just in general, you can't defeat physics, and these digital things just can't actually amplify light the way a photocathode can.
Yeah. So
And
it's
that,
still all hokum.
yeah. So
It's
I
algorithms
mean,
and yeah.
who knows what the next technology breakthrough is right now, but right now for the foreseeable future, analog night vision is still king in terms of actual performance. Yeah.
Okay. And do we know like quantifiably what sort of distances we're talking about versus physical night vision?
It
Like in
is
terms of distance that you can see.
in terms of distance you can see, yeah, it's not even, it's orders of magnitude.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we're talking like potentially like hundreds of meters further or kilometers further. Like what are we looking
yeah.
at?
So night vision itself, I mean, you still have, even with the analog stuff, you still have limiting factors, right, in terms of how fine of your resolution you can get and that kind of thing. So you do lose detail out like at hundreds and hundreds of meters with your typical head mounted stuff. But digital stuff, like sometimes you'd be in the city if you're out somewhere dark though, like you'd have a hard time seeing to the back of your backyard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that is a big difference.
Yeah. And I mean, the digital stuff, like I said too, right? Like when they're doing those demo photos or you're scrolling through your videos on Instagram, you see an advertisement for it, right? Almost without exception, they've set it up in such a way that the lighting conditions are extremely favorable to digital stuff.
Right.
And then as things get darker and darker and darker, which is where you really need and want night vision, the digital stuff just can't keep up.
That's interesting.
Is that including things like the Sonics? I know they have that Opsin, and I think they came out with their own PVS 14. Is that kind of getting close to like Gen 1 analog or?
Yeah. So I mean, when I'm talking analog, I'm not talking Gen 1 at all. We don't like, there isn't anything currently being made or issued that uses Gen 1. It's all Gen 2, Gen 3. But yeah, the Psionics Opsin, I've looked through them. They're good for a digital device, but they just they just cannot compete to what the analog stuff's capable of. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
And
That said,
basically that's your resolution essentially.
Sorry, what's the resolution?
Like with the different generations, is that the main thing? Is it you get a finer image quality with like the resolution is better, or
a little bit? So Gen 1 has a completely different like tube architecture, and I'll be honest, we don't deal with it enough for me to even be that familiar with Gen 1 architecture. But it uses a completely different like way of intensifying the light. With Gen 2 and Gen 3, basically at the front of the tube, you've got a couple small elements. You got your photocathode, you've got an anti-veiling glare, you've got your microchannel plate, and then your phosphor screen. And that all happens within a couple millimeters. And that's where all of your light amplification happens. Everything else in the tube, and actually, just so we can, when I say tube, this is what I'm talking about. This is an image intensification tube right here. Let's find the camera. So there's your contact pads at the top where your power gets routed into the tube. And then there's the tube itself, right? So all of the actual work in the tube happens in a couple millimeters at the front. And then everything else in here pretty much is a fiber optic twist. And what that fiber optic twist does is it basically takes an inverted image and flips it back around right way up. And that's it. That's it. And that's where like some of the tube quality, right? So if you have an image and that fiber optic twist needs to bring the image 180 degrees, and that fiber optic twist is only 179 degrees, you get distortion in the tube, right? Especially as you get further and further out from the center. So zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Your zone 3 gets more and more distorted. And that can happen with cheaper tubes or out of spec tubes. So all of that quality control, all of that fine detailed processing, that's where all of the real expense of night vision comes from.
Okay.
So the tube is essentially the heart of the night vision, and the housing almost doesn't matter to that extent.
Yeah. So there's 3 components to night vision. The tube, which I was just showing you guys, and then the optics, which are the front and back. So this is an objective lens here, and this is an eyepiece here. So these are actually really important because just like if you're putting a scope on a rifle, right? If you buy cheap glass, you get distortion, you get mirage, you get chromatic aberration where it's not able to pick up all the different colors of light equally, right? So you get those blues that start to separate from the image, if you've ever seen that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you'll get distortion where you look at it and you get this fisheye effect and all that sort of stuff. So your optics are extremely important because at the front, they're governing how much light can come into the tube. And the more light these optics are able to gather and the better it's able to keep the wavelengths together, the better your image is going to be to your tube. And then again, as it comes back out on the other side from the fiber optic twist, the better your eyepiece is, the flatter your focal plane is, all of those kind of things. They can make a huge difference to your actual image quality and image performance. And that's measurably different in terms of like we can put it on a machine with really cheap shitty glass, and we can put it on a machine with really good glass, and you can immediately tell, like looking at the grid squares, oh, there's distortion here, it's got this big bowed fisheye effect, we can't resolve these fine line details, all that sort of stuff. You put good glass on with the exact same tube and performance immediately improves. So glass is extremely important. It's one of the things that we're super passionate about at ONSC, about making sure that everybody has really good glass, because particularly with the tube limitations that we have that we can sell to civilians, glass is the place where we can kind of squeeze every bit of performance out of a tube. And then housings, they matter because that's where your waterproofing, your environmental, your drop protection, all that sort of stuff is coming from your housing. It's where your controls come from, right? So if you've got a really weird set of controls on it, where got like 8 different buttons that you have to try to find in the dark, that sucks. So housings from a user interface perspective really matter, and they can bring a lot of quality of life features too, like auto shut off and that sort of stuff, where they can help protect your tubes. But like once you get your glass, once you get your housing, when you look at a say $5,000 device versus a $20,000 device, all of that price increase is coming from the tubes, right? Because your glass and your housing staying the same.
Right. So you're coming from the tubes, not from. Sorry, I might be
Yeah.
getting myself confused here. Are you considering the image intensifier portion that is the
that's
tube
what
when you?
that's what
That's
I
what
call
you
the
mean?
tube, the image
Okay.
intensifier. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do people buy like call it an entry level night vision setup, and then are they able, like, is it a universal thing that they can just swap out the tube at a later date and upgrade their night vision?
You can, yeah. It's one of those things where we've gone back and forth on it, because guys will buy something that's really entry level and then go, hey, can I upgrade my tubes? But for us, then taking tubes that have been used where we don't know how many hours are on them, we don't know what's been done to them, that sort of thing, to then turn around and try to sell them, it's difficult for us. So generally what we recommend people do is like try to sell them in used market, because not because we're not willing to do it, but because generally they'll get more money than we could offer them on the
Right.
used market.
Okay.
But 100%, yeah, we get guys who will buy a monocular with a decent tube in it, and then say, hey, you know what? I've saved up a bit more money. Can I swap over to a binocular, keep this tube, and just buy one more tube?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's more common then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So what are some of the advantages, disadvantages of, say, monocular versus binocular, besides the obvious ones?
Yeah. So the obvious one being price, right? So you've got half the components. Generally, monoculars are about half the price. But the disadvantages to a monocular is you've got one eye that's seeing everything, and you've got one eye that's seeing nothing, right? So your eyes aren't able to resolve it. Your eyes aren't designed to have two completely different images coming into them, right? Two different light levels, that sort of thing.
And
so
depth.
your brain, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, and depth.
And depth perception's another one, yeah. I mean, even with binoculars, depth perception really comes with time and experience. But I'd say the learning curve, going from never using night vision to using binoculars, the learning curve's a lot shorter than the learning curve for binoculars, because you're constantly training the brain to stop fighting itself when you're running a binocular. That's a big one for sure.
But when you mentioned depth perception, like how bad is the depth perception? Like, could I not pick a glass up off the table kind of thing? Or
so what I'd say is
I'm
your
gonna
first
stub
couple
my
times
toe.
your first couple times using it, yeah, you'll see guys tripping all over themselves, right? Like
Oh, really?
when we go to agencies and whatnot, and like give them their in-dock on new night vision devices, like the first thing we say is like, hey, take these into your shoot house or into your station, anywhere where you can black it out, and just walk around. Don't do anything crazy. Just learn how to walk around with these things. Go out in the woods, walk around a bit, learn how to like climb a fence, go over roots and branches, that sort of stuff, because it does take time. That said, once you get some hours under it, I've got a couple thousand hours of night vision use, at least, probably more than that. Gets to the point where you can run and do everything that you do in the daytime pretty instinctively. You can pick things up, you can grab something that's being thrown at you.
Is that just because of looking through the lenses, or do the lenses have some level of distortion to them that you have to learn to compensate from?
It's a little bit of distortion. No lens system is exactly 1x, because it's right. You're not looking through it. It's not just a flat plane with it, like an EOTech, right? Like you've got an actual lens assembly with multiple components, so it's never exactly 1x. So that little bit of zoom can throw people off, and then even though you've got two tubes, like this is something that a lot of people say, oh, you got binoculars, you got twice the field of view. You really don't. With a binocular, you still have an overlapping two circles, right?
Yeah.
So you don't get a huge wide field of view, and the depth perception, yeah, you get a little bit offset, makes it easier, but the depth perceptions, it's just a brain learning to figure it out, right? It's like
Mm.
You ever see those guys with the bicycles where they've got the handles on them backwards?
Yeah.
And they've got that little mechanism so that you turn the way you'd normally turn riding a bike, and it turns the wheel the opposite direction. And you can take anybody who's ridden a bike before and you put them on there, and it's all backwards in their brain. They can't ride it for crap. And then they ride nothing but this backwards bicycle for a month. And the next thing you know, they're ripping around on it, no problem. They turn the handles the opposite way, and the brain just learns how to compensate for that.
Yeah, okay, that makes
My
sense.
favorite is watching people back up boat trailers.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
too,
a
right?
great example, but yeah.
Yeah, you think that you think it's going to go one way, but you got to get the trailer going
Yeah.
the other way. So,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Comedy
that's great.
gold.
yeah.
And then
we
try
got a
and back up.
question. Go ahead.
Sorry, try and back up a Super B. That's fun.
A Super B, as in like the
Like a
Dodge.
set of grain trailers, or no,
Oh.
like a semi.
2 trailers.
Semi
I thought you
Super
were
B
talking
trailer,
about
2 trailers.
the Dodge muscle car
Yeah,
for a second.
sorry.
Like, why
It-
would that be
it
so
made
bad?
sense
'Cause of
in here.
Is it because of the fin on the back, or?
Yes.
So the problem asked this question a while ago, and I missed it. He says, "How does your Eon PVS 14 compare to the Eon 14 from Electro Optic North, other than the white versus green?" I don't, feel free to answer that however you want. I don't know how
Yeah.
diplomatic you
So,
want to be, but
Electro Optics North is also us.
well, shit, you can
Yeah.
just trash talk one or the other or both then.
Yeah. So Electro Optics North was it was originally set up to be our budget website, right? For guys who are looking for simpler, easier choices, who just wanted to get into it.
Okay.
And that was how it was originally set up. Just it can be a little overwhelming to try to get into night vision, and there's so many choices, so many options, so many different configurations, where Electro Optics North was basically just set up to be a simpler way to get into it. I'll be completely honest. Right now, the Electro Optics North website has not been maintained because we've been so incredibly busy. Order through Opfor. There's more stuff on the website that's more up to date. Yeah, the Eon project is ongoing, but it's a little bit in limbo right now in terms of what we're doing with it. Yeah, to answer the question, there's no difference. We're building it either way. It was mostly just set up to provide consumers with a simpler buying pattern.
Mm-hmm. Where
A little bit
are
less
you mentioned before and kind of just alluded to it again, that you guys are essentially an assembly plant, right?
Yep.
So are all of the individual components for assembly, are they coming from the same places, or are things coming from kind of all over the world and
all
imported
over.
as can and different
Yep.
brands, I imagine? So what part of the world are most, like, I imagine this is going to be different depending on the price point that you're talking about, but like what kind of places are we talking about that things are coming from?
So United States for certain components, right?
Elbows up, motherfucker. No, sorry, carry
Yeah.
on.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
I just wanted to piss off Kurt. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so the United States still makes the best Gen 3 tubes that on the planet. They're the best tubes. So for military and law enforcement, we have the ability to bring those tubes in. For civilians, we don't. But tubes come from the United States. There's some housing companies down in the United States that make some pretty decent stuff. So those are good. And then from the United States, the big one is optics. Rochester Precision Optics is down in the States. They do incredible work. We've got a really, really good relationship with them. They provide most of the optics for all of the current U.S. Army projects. So all of their binoculars, all of their panoramic, all of their fusion. So their fusion binoculars that are thermal and night vision that are combined. All of their optics basically get made by Rochester Precision, and we've got a great relationship with them. So we import optics from them. Singapore is another one for us. We've got our own optics that we've just released a couple months ago that come from Singapore, which is made by the same team that used to make most of the U.S. Army optics. So U.S. Army PVS-14 program, which is the most widely issued night vision device on the planet, the PVS-14. Most of their optics came from a company called Key Optic in Singapore, and then the rest of their optics came from a company called Fujinon in Japan.
And the PVS 14, that's Gen 2 stuff?
PVS 14 was Gen 3.
It is Gen 3.
It's Gen 3. So yeah, so for clarity, because when I say optics, I'm talking specifically these guys. So the lens system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wasn't being clear there. So the
I'm still getting hip to the lingo.
Yeah. So the glass front and back was primarily made for the U.S. Army, either in Singapore or Japan for a very long time. The company that was making it in Singapore shut down because they had more money in medical devices. So they shut down their entire night vision program. And following the expiration of the team's non-competes, we started up production with that team of our own lenses.
Oh, cool. So wait, sorry, you're producing the lenses now?
Yes. Well,
but you're still having them done in Singapore, though.
Correct. Yes.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
I thought for a second you were saying that you guys started a lens
No.
manufacturer.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
We tried convincing them to come here, but they said it was too cold.
You know what?
And those shit government.
I would, if this was 10 years ago, I'd say at least our country isn't run by a dictatorship, but I don't know if we could say that anymore.
Wrong answer.
Okay. That's all fair. So it sounds a lot like the US, Singapore. Now you said Japan, right?
Japan makes a lot of optics as well, like the glass components. Then China's obviously is a huge one. A lot of the housing components, circuit boards, all the circuit boards that were in like the U.S. Army, again, the PVS 14 program, like they all have Chinese circuit board manufacturer stamps on them.
That's not
because you can't get chips and circuit boards that haven't been touched by China in some way. And frankly, China's not just cheap crap anymore, right? China can make cheap crap, but they can also make some of the high precision stuff, right?
Yep. Especially when we're talking about electronics.
Yes. Yeah. So like one of the best housings on the market is OEM'd for us in China, and they've done a phenomenal job on it. That's not our only project in the housing sphere, but that's about all I can say about that. But yeah, couple months maybe, we'll see.
Where's the scoop, bro? Don't worry, we won't tell anyone. As I'm sure you know, when people give me proprietary information, I am tight-lipped. I don't.
I didn't hear anything before the show started. And then for tubes, there's a company in France that is called Exosense Photonis.
Okay.
So they make most of the tubes for European militaries, but because they're not ITAR controlled out of the United States, they will sell tubes to basically anybody who isn't an enemy, and that includes us. And then there's a company, and then there's another company in China that actually licensed technology from Photonis, some of their older tech. They license it to get a head start on tube manufacturing, so they actually do make tubes in China. And again, they've done a really good job with it. They're not as high performing as the Photonis stuff because it's some of their older tech, but they're some of the cleanest tubes we see. Like the Photonis tubes frequently have a lot of like spots and blemishes on them. Typically the NMVT tubes, even though they're like the Chinese tubes, even though they're a little bit lower in actual raw performance, they're super clean, rarely any blemishes, and super affordable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
I got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Can I ask my follow-up? I believe I had a follow-up, sir.
Yes.
I had one follow-up.
I'm sorry, which outlet are you with?
Kemble News. You were talking about the US and it sounds like a good chunk of especially high quality stuff is coming out of the United States. And what I'm wondering is, it sounds like a lot of it may be the military LE side rather than the civilian side. But what I'm regardless of that, what I'm kind of wondering is, what are they classified as when you're importing them? Are they in one of the categories that are getting caught up in all of this here's my tariff, claw it back. Now you see it, now you don't. Is it is your industry kind of in that sort of turmoil space like a lot of other folks are?
So, I mean, obviously the uncertainty with tariffs is the big thing, right? Because it's hard to make your purchasing decision 6 months in advance if you don't know where these things are going.
Right.
But so far, most of our stuff has been tariff free. With the HS codes, the harmonization codes that they ship
Okay.
under, they haven't been tariffed yet. And we also ship a ton down to the United States. We sell a lot to the Americans, and again, most of the stuff we sell has been tariff free, or guys will get tariffed, and then they show them the correct export forms and whatnot, and they get the tariffs refunded.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we've paid tariffs on a few things. Some nylon goods, like some pouches and that sort of stuff, we've gotten hit with tariffs, which suck. But and then some flashlights we've gotten hit with tariffs as well. So some of our flashlight brands have had their prices go up just because crossing the border we get hit with an extra $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in tariffs. And
flashlights, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Who's tariffing Canadian flashlights, for God's sakes? Oh, wait.
Well, it's actually it's coming back like when we're importing flashlights.
Oh, so we've
wait, Canada has 25% tariffs on certain codes coming out of the United States.
Why in the hell are we tariffing flashlights?
Yeah, why flashlights? I don't know. And it's not even
Mark Carney has something against
apply
seeing the
logic.
Yeah.
And
the United States has basically put a pause on it all and said, hey, if it falls under the USMCA, which is the trade agreement that they negotiated in 2018, if it falls under that trade agreement, for right now, there's no tariffs on it, which pretty much all of our stuff does.
Is it mainly the IR stuff that's getting tariffed, or is it just like your regular TLR Streamlight kind of thing?
Yeah. Like, so if you're familiar with Princeton Tech, which are like little helmet flashlights and stuff, that's one that we got hit with tariffs on.
That is so stupid.
That's such a very specific thing to get hit with.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't these like these types of flashlights? They're LED based, correct?
Yep.
And don't we mine large amounts of the minerals to make LEDs?
I believe so. I'm not an LED manufacturer, but
I can remember specifically about a year or two ago an announcement that was made about a mine that was opening in northern Saskatchewan specifically that is supposed to be it's not a precious mineral, it's called a rare earth element that is used in making white and blue LEDs. So if that's the case, I'm no economist here, but if that's the case, aren't we just kind of setting ourselves up to get shot in the foot? Because like, isn't our whole freaking economy run on exporting raw resources and then re-importing the finished products?
What did I just finish telling you about logic?
Did I just break the code, or am I man? Now I'm gonna get gagged. They're going to visit me in the night and they're going to hit me with one of those Men in Black flashers.
Right. Yeah.
And then they're going to delete our episode off of the
air.
That just seems so short-sighted and stupid to me. But I mean, I guess there's something I must be missing. I'm not smart enough, like Mark Carney, our resident economist.
Yeah. And the other side of it too, right, is like there isn't really a Canadian manufacturer for good quality flashlights, or at least in this very specific application. So even if we're mining it, we're sending it somewhere else to be refined and then actually.
That's right. Yeah. But if you think that if we're buying less of the finished product, that eventually they're going to be buying less of the raw material to make the finished product.
Yeah. I suspect, given where most of the LEDs that we've ever sourced come from, is that we're not actually sending the raw material to the United States. It's probably going to China first, where then they make it into LEDs because they're actually manufacturing.
Right.
And then from there it goes to the number of American tactical companies that are going to have to increase their prices because their components come from China.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
There's just no way around it. There's a lot of made in USA stuff, and it's true for here in Canada as well. There's a lot of made in USA stuff
everywhere
that has it's been a global market for so long, right? So
that's right. Yeah. Craziness. Okay. Kurt, I believe I've used my follow-up question and then some. You feel, do you remember?
Very good.
You should have
Thank
written
you.
it down.
I appreciate the opportunity here. I have one question, one follow-up. Um, back to lenses and that. Some
Yeah.
of the more, I guess, famous European lens manufacturers like Leica, uh, like that. Are they in this game as well?
No.
Nothing.
So
Hmm.
there's 3 manufacturers on the planet that are making actual like mil-spec glass that is certified, tested, and comes out with all of the performance documentation that comes with it. Right. So
Hmm.
there's Rochester Precision Optics. There's Fujinon, who also does camera lenses, like you
Right.
mentioned, and then there's us.
Hmm.
So there are other lens manufacturers out there, but they haven't been able to get their performance or their environmentals good enough to really meet that at least the US mil-spec standards for their contracts.
Is that right? That's interesting. Like you
Yeah.
look at something like Leica, and they make a lot of medical
Yep.
equipment, stuff like that.
So
So that's
yeah, so there's a couple components to it, right? One is that the prescriptions, for the most part, are fairly controlled.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to start from scratch, you got a long ways to go. But the other part of it too is that the profit margins for these guys that are in this industry,
Mm.
night vision optics are not their most profitable divisions.
Yeah,
So
right.
even when Excelitas Key Optics shut down in Singapore, and there's this huge gap in the market where there just wasn't enough optics to go around, Fujinon in Japan didn't increase their night vision optic production at all,
Oh,
because from their perspective, they went, well, we can invest $1 million into more night vision optics that gets us X percentage of profit, or we could
mhm.
put it into our commercial camera lenses, which gets us X percentage of profit, right? And whenever you're
Yeah,
answering to the shareholders like that, like the
yeah.
shareholders aren't going to go for something with low ROI, right? Return on
Mhm.
investment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a company like us, where we go, hey, well, not only do we want good optics for ourselves, but we don't need to hit that like 40% profit margin that some of these companies are demanding. We can sell it for less
Right.
than that and take a smaller cut if it's
Mhm.
providing value to the market that we're serving.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
All right. The next one, I'm just wondering, when you get your components in, do you go through testing? What do you need to test? I'm assuming the quality of the actual component plus then the assembled unit, or do you just kind of rely on certificates of compliance and that factory testing and things like
Yep.
that?
So it's a mixture of both.
Mm.
Exactly right. So for our for optical components like lenses, they come and we've got like on an order of a couple hundred lenses, we've got testing data for a couple hundred lenses.
Sure.
So we can go through all of that testing data by serial number and go, hey, this particular lens is really good, and all of them that come
You bet.
are hitting the minimums, right? If they don't
Mhm.
hit minimums, they don't show up.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we've
I
got all of
gotcha.
that testing data on those components. For housings, we usually get those in pieces. They don't ship to us complete. They come in pieces, and we inspect every piece as it comes in.
Mhm.
Then we assemble it, like we do the last bit of assembly here in Canada, and then we do our quality control. So we check every housing to make sure that all of the circuit boards are functioning, all the features on the circuit boards are functioning, um, all that sort of stuff. All of that gets
Mm.
checked for every single one that comes in, every single one that we build, before it ever even goes to the assembly room or to a dealer that we're maybe supplying.
Sure. Yeah.
100%
So
of
a lot of the
every
QC
housing.
is done Canada side.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for tubes, again, I mean, that kind of stuff, that they're vacuum tubes, right? So it's not like we're pulling them apart and
That's
going
right.
into them,
Of
but
course.
they
Yeah.
come with spec sheets where it gives you all of the data for that tube's performance. And we
Mhm.
go
Yeah.
through that and we enter all of that into our database, so that 6 years down the road, somebody says, hey, I bought serial number 3024.
You
And we
bet.
can go, okay, I can look that up and go, well, this is what we built it with, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And then for complete devices, there's another machine called the Hoffman ANV 121A, which is a ITAR controlled machine. So we had to get export permit and paperwork from all that to take possession of it and to get it exported from the United States. But that actually allows you to do all of these things I was talking about earlier, where we can evaluate the distortion on a complete system. We can evaluate the ability to resolve resolution and highlight and low light. And for every single device that we build in-house, it ships to the customer, no matter who that customer is, with a Hoffman report that's either 4 or 8 pages
Holy smokes!
of
right?
detailed specs and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, right? So, and then when we're building it right, it's not just you screw it together, but you actually have to set the focus stops correctly, make sure that
Right.
it's zeroed properly, that -2 on the diopter is actually a -2 prescription, that sort of thing.
Okay, that specialized equipment is not cheap, is it?
It is. It is absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bit of a barrier to entry. We've got a couple of questions that are backing up, so I want to rattle them off at you so that we can talk about what we want to talk about. Number one, how do night vision and thermal do against ultraviolet?
I don't understand the question.
Me neither. I didn't know ultraviolet was used for visual.
Is that a character in a video game?
Like for UV rays coming off the sun, the answer would be very poorly. But in terms of UV,
see ya later.
Yeah, it's not really a factor. Like if you've got a UV light, yeah, sure.
I'm just gonna take a guess here, and what I'm guessing that he's asking is how effective are night vision and thermal optics when in an area that is illuminated by ultraviolet light?
I'll be honest, in my many hours.
I guess what he's wondering about, like when the SWAT team storms the grow up.
Yeah. Alexa, put the lights to ultraviolet. Honestly, I wouldn't expect that they would have much impact one way or the other. I mean, any kind of bright light source, as long as it's within the range of detectable light to that night vision device, you can get some splashback, you can get some whiteout, you can get a halo around light sources where you can't really see into that halo. That's a measurable part of a tube where you can actually, on the spec sheet, it'll tell you what the halo size is. But in general, against UV stuff, I haven't really run or tested night vision against UV, and it's never been really a factor. So
you don't storm that many grow ups.
I can't say that I have. No.
Do you think it would affect thermals at all? Like, I imagine you would probably, like it shouldn't matter at all, should it?
No,
because you're not going to see the ultraviolet rays going through the air.
Yeah, and that's one of the big advantages of thermal and fusion. It's one of the reasons why, like, when it comes to military and government, fusion is kind of considered to be like that's the future where everybody is going. Because one of the advantages of thermal, yeah, sure, you can see through smoke and that sort of stuff, which is cool. But you can also see through light. So one of the things that you have to factor in when using night vision is when those light sources are pointed back at you, it does start to overwhelm the tube, not in like the Hollywood way of like, oh, my eyes, I can't see anything. And like, the tubes have built-in protections, right? They're meant to be used in rooms with flashbangs going off, right? So a bright light's not crippling you behind night vision. The tube just blinks out quickly and then it comes right back on. And
that's what those little chips that are often made in China are for, right?
Genuinely, yes, that's part of it. It's also built into the power supply of the tube itself.
Oh, okay. All right.
But thermal, because it's not affected by any of the visible light stuff, so you can have a million lumens shining at you and the thermal's going to see through it and past it. But it has some limitations as well, right? It can't see through glass, so windows and that sort of stuff. Night vision can see through your windows. Thermal can't. So there's pros and cons to each system.
Yeah. Okay, second question here was from Boone. Is Rochester, you can answer this however you want to answer it. Is Rochester Precision a parent company of L3 Elbit, or is it a general, we make this to sell for everyone friendly?
So Rochester Precision Optics is its own company, and they simply supply to a lot of U.S. government programs of record and that sort of stuff for night vision. So they've got a very good relationship with L3 for sure.
Okay. Third question was from the problem. Why same power IR flashlight in 940 nanometers seems dimmer than 850 nanometer one via your NVG?
So typically that's going to,
yeah.
Part of that is to do with.
I'm hoping you understood the question because I didn't.
Yeah. So what it is, it's talking about like the wavelength of light that a particular flashlight is shining in. And in my experience, the reason why you're seeing the 940 seem dimmer is because generally with a Gen 3 device, the front photocathode is a gallium arsenide, and that has a certain range of wavelengths that it's sensitive to. And as you get up into kind of the higher 800s, it becomes less and less sensitive to those wavelengths. Photonis tubes from France use a hybrid multi-alkali that actually sees up past 1,000. So you don't typically see that same kind of drop off in intensity from a Photonis tube versus an American Gen 3 tube. And SWIR and kind of these out of band spectrums are a big factor right now, because as night vision has proliferated around the globe, United States and Five Eyes have kind of seen that their night fighting advantage and their edge has been eroded a little bit, because all of these like strobe marking devices that you put on your helmet to indicate, hey, this is where I am, or your aiming lasers, they all function kind of in that 800 nanometer range, which now everybody can see. So now they're pushing to go, okay, like how can we see further out of band and then use our devices that only our night vision can now see those devices again, right? So
right, yeah. Oh wow, what a race that is, huh? Okay, so one more question came in from Boone while we were asking, so we'll get it out of the way, and then we'll let Mike, who actually prepared for the show by writing down questions, and then Kurt just sucked up all the air in the room for the whole show.
That's what I do.
He said, future purchase question. I was looking on your site at the B.E. Myers Kiji. What beam would you recommend for a guy in rural Saskatchewan? You know, for example, 3 degree or 10 degree.
You just outed yourself, Boone.
Yeah, this seems like he should have just emailed you guys this question.
Yeah. Well, he's in rural Saskatchewan, allegedly.
Allegedly.
He's actually in southern Manitoba.
Yeah.
Right.
For most users and applications, and particularly in a place like Saskatchewan, where rumor is it's pretty flat, you want a beam that can go a long ways, and for that, the 3 degree is going to have a tighter throw. So the 3 degree with a 10 degree diffuser, which is what it comes with, would be the one that I'd go with. The 10 degree one, where it's kind of wider and a little bit more diffused, I like that for helmet mounting, because then you're just kind of slaving a light to your helmet and looking around with it there, and having that wider rather than a really tight focus is nice, because you can just kind of see everything that you're trying to see up there.
Or you want to be able to see further outdoors, if you're watching your dog run away at night for 3 days in Saskatchewan, you want that 3 degree though. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, Mike, I understand you have some questions.
Guys, so if someone's
shut up for a while,
if someone's going to go purchasing night vision, does the color matter at all? Like if you want a green tube or you want a white phosphor tube, is that something they should consider, or is it they basically do the same job?
It is something to consider. In empirical testing data, like conducted by various militaries, because these like militaries want to know, hey, if we do a P43 versus a P45, which is green versus white phosphor, if we do one phosphor color versus another, does it offer an advantage to our soldiers and our users? And the answer at the end of the day was, in terms of data that you can see, no. Green phosphor allows you to see all the same stuff that white does. There's a few edge cases where if you're a little bit colorblind to green, maybe you get better performance out of white, that sort of thing. But in general, no, it doesn't matter there. Where the phosphor color does matter is in eye fatigue. Personally, I find green tubes just a little bit more fatiguing on my eyes, and the blue ones are just a little easier. So if I'm wearing night vision for an extended period of time, I find I have an easier time with white phosphor versus green. And that is kind of the answer that the vast majority of the population has as well. So that's why basically everything that's being issued to departments, agencies, militaries right now, it's all white phosphor, because for the vast majority of users, white phosphor is easier on the eyes.
I'm assuming you've heard the story of the red night vision, why there is no red night vision.
Yeah. All the demons that get summoned.
Do you want to go into that for a little bit? Because that's kind of an interesting story.
I've never heard
Yeah,
this.
I mean, I'm a little bit familiar with it. I'm not a lore master of red night vision by any stretch. Yeah, the red stuff, I've never used it. It's pretty rare. It's pretty uncommon. There's a few collectors out there that have it. It's a cool thing to have. My understanding is that it didn't offer any advantages, and in fact, it had some disadvantages in terms of it summoning demons out of the void. I wouldn't put much stock in that. But if you're sleep deprived enough, anything can happen. So,
for those that know,
I assume
I can attest.
Yeah.
So
I just
the
assumed
theory,
you were talking about like it did something and like illuminated people's like teeth and eyes or something in a funny way.
No, there's an urban legend. At least I assume this is what you're referring to. The urban legend that the red night vision, and you start seeing monsters.
yeah, it was in Vietnam. There was apparently it was an experimental type of night vision they were dealing with. Instead of green or white, you would see in the red spectrum.
Yeah.
And what they're saying was happening, the guys were seeing demonic things flying around the sky. Now, whether that was the red can see something that's actually like demons are everywhere, or that they were just so sleep deprived that their brain created this thing.
They were just seeing bats flying around at night in the fucking Vietnam jungle, for God's sakes.
Oh no, but there was like things on the ground too. Like there was like Sasquatch looking things and
warthogs and fucking raccoons.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is that a number of guys who have red night vision, who've as like collector's items, have taken lots of photos and stuff through it, and also reported back that unfortunately no, they don't. They don't.
No.
They're not able
The netherworld
to track
is not
anything
there.
supernatural through.
I was really hoping to summon a level 3 Golgothic shit demon, but no, nothing. My Ouija board didn't even budge.
If anyone wants a little bit of backstory, I believe it's either wartime stories or bedtime stories on YouTube. Did like a 30-minute deep dive illustrated video on that. It's quite entertaining.
That's hilarious. That, you know what that reminds me of when we were kids, when people would tell you if you go into the bathroom and turn the lights out and look in the bathroom mirror and you say Bloody Mary 3 times with your eyes closed, and then when you open your eyes, the Bloody Mary will appear in the mirror in front of you. Did anybody else have that? Or was I just had a strange childhood? You guys are looking at me funny. Stop looking at me funny. Oh, I guess it depends on how old you are, maybe. I was doing this before Beetlejuice was a movie.
Jonathan Bergen.
I called and Beetlejuice never showed up. Damn it. Or to hang out.
From John. Is it against the law to wear a tack helmet with NVGs while driving a street bike at night?
So I'm not a lawyer.
That's very specific.
Yeah, that is very specific. I'll tell you what it is. It's a bad idea. Yeah, I would never recommend riding a street bike at night. The other thing you have to understand too is a motorcycle helmet is rated for a certain type of impact, whereas a tack helmet and a ballistic helmet is rated for a different type of impact. And it is not going to protect you in a motorcycle crash. And just in terms of the amount of situational awareness that you have, like, unless you're riding somewhere where it's super, super, super dark, you're going to have more situational awareness just from your street lights and your headlights. And giving that up to drive with nods, probably not a safe decision. And I imagine that any officer who pulled you over would have a similar opinion.
That's it. But if you really need to get from A to B and the street lights are out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I haven't driven at night. I wouldn't do it on a bike, but yeah. Like
funny.
if I'm somewhere super rural and I'm one of the only cars on the road, and like there's deer or moose or anything like that, where like you'll see them way sooner with nods than you would with just your headlights. So there is some advantage to it there, but you have to be very, very cautious about where and how you do it. It's certainly not something that I would advise the general public to do.
That's a very safe statement to make from a professional
Yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah.
I just need to point this out, Todd, one of our resident vets. As a guy who's experienced sleep deprivation in a military context, I've seen some pretty wicked shit, red, green, or white.
Yeah. Get enough rippets. Yeah.
That's funny.
Right.
Mike, how many more? You got more questions, right? Please tell me you got more questions.
Oh man, we haven't even gotten into thermal yet.
I said I would shut up. I just didn't. I apologize.
Well, it's not that you don't shut up, Chris. It's that you take 5 minutes to ask like a 30-second question.
I know, but you know what?
Then I
When I
take 5
ask a
minutes to
question,
answer it. So
when I ask a question, you know exactly what I mean. And when Ray answers a question, you have no further questions.
So,
And the
So it-
machine says that's a lie.
the lie
For the
detector
questions.
test. So if someone's is listening to this, they're going to want to purchase night vision. What are some of the things they need to look for? What should they be budgeting for? Like, do you need to just go out right at the gate? Like, I need panos now. Is that the best move, or what are the
no,
states you should go with?
panos are an extraordinarily specialized piece of equipment. If you've got the disposable income for them, by all means, I support you all the way. But the real applications are for guys who are doing CQB for a living, guys who are potentially driving with night vision where you need that extra SA on the side, flying with night vision, that sort of thing. Working in close environments where with a team, that's where panos really shine. For most people, really not necessary. That said, if you can do it, by all means, because panos are absolutely awesome. They're super cool. I demo them all the time to various places, people, and the feedback is universally, this is amazing.
I believe it's where we
That's
met
it.
with the TACCOM and you had the
Yep.
panel. Like, do you want to try them on? Like, absolutely. I want to try these on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does the tin man have a sheet metal cock?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they're awesome. Definitely not something that people need. And honestly, it really depends on your budget. I'd never encourage you to take out a loan or something that you can't afford in order to get night vision. Be responsible with your money. A monocle, the jump from having no night vision to having a monocle that lets you see in the dark is a bigger performance jump from a monocle to a set of panos.
Yeah,
There's
makes
that.
sense.
Right? Because you go from, oh, I can't see anything, it's dark outside, to, hey, I can look around, I can see what I need to see. Binos, yeah, if you're doing anything dynamic or you're moving around, or you just want to be more comfortable behind the night vision, binos are awesome. Binos are kind of the new default night vision device. It's what I run 99% of the time, put a set of binos on. They're lightweight. You get fewer kind of headaches and hiccups that you get from a mono because your eyes are seeing the same thing all the time. Just the good way to go. But again, depending on what you're doing, like if you just want to have something where like you can walk around your property and see what that bump in the night was, like was that a raccoon or was it a burglar? Yeah, mono's going to do that. Sure, great. If you want to have a little bit more fun with it or you want to do something more dynamic, take the ATV out for a rip. Yeah, I'd say binos. Yeah, and if you got the disposable income for it, by all means, I'll sell you some panos.
So what would an entry level, just like a basic binocular, like I'm just getting into this, I'm not doing anything serious. What's the rough budget that someone should be looking for?
So if you want to start with just cheap entry level device that lets you see in the dark, you can get into it. Like we have devices that are like our entry level devices are about $2,200, which if you know anything about, like it's a lot of money. $2,200 isn't nothing. But if you know anything about the night vision market over the last 15, 20 years, that's incredible. Like
Yeah.
That is less than people were paying for night vision devices 10, 15 years ago by 50%. Like it used to be a PVS 14 was 3,000 to 3,500 at a minimum, and it went up from there. So with some of these entry level options where we take a good housing, nothing spectacular about it, it's just a basic monocular housing, right? But it's good, holds a seal, does everything it needs to do, turns on when you want it on, turns off when you want it off. With good optics, we don't sell any non-mil-spec optics. So the 3 companies that I mentioned earlier that make all the best optics in the world, those are the only 3 we sell. We don't sell anything else, with the exception of Panos where it's all proprietary and whatnot. But those are the only 3 we sell. So you're going to get good optics. And then from there, it's just a matter of what tube you can afford. Our starter tubes typically start around 1,400 FOM. Our most popular and our kind of our best value ones are the 1,600 auto-gated manual gain white phosphor. That's probably the ones that we sell the most of to the commercial market. So yeah, they're pretty good.
Do you have is there a big split between like the civilian side and the military side, or is it like a 60-40, 90-10? What kind of split are you looking at on that roughly?
You mean in terms of market share?
In terms of market share, for us right now, I mean, like again, Opfor isn't a company. We're not a legacy defense industry company, right? We've been around less than 4 years. So in order to get your foot in the door with real military procurement, it takes a lot of capital behind you, right? Yeah. Like huge amounts. So like, and it'll be right called out in like some of the tenders and bids, like, hey, you have to have sold X amount of devices to NATO forces only, that sort of thing, right? So
yeah,
right.
There's a lot of barriers to entry there. On the large procurement side, small unit purchases, that happens semi-regularly where a specific unit goes, hey, we need XYZ and you guys can supply in a timely manner for less price than anybody else, and off it goes. Law enforcement's a fairly significant portion of the market, and then international sales is a huge one as well, right? Because we're able to build outside of the United States. That means that we're not governed by ITAR, which is super strict about what night vision can do. We're still governed by the Canadian Controlled Goods Program and that sort of stuff. So we do have to get export permits to send stuff out of the country. That goes through Global Affairs Canada. But a significant amount of our market is exporting, and then we do a lot with components and housings as well, right? So these are components and housings that we get in where we do all the quality control, inspections and all that stuff. So people who are buying from us know, hey, this isn't just some housing that was thrown together by a couple people in China who don't really understand what this device is supposed to do. They don't know what to look for. No, it was built by us. Everybody who's touching it has tons of hours behind night vision, and they've got peace of mind when they're ordering it to buy it for their builds and that sort of stuff. So we sell a lot of components as well.
And then
you can get around those permits. Get around those permits sometimes by just chucking a bunch into some of the AVs that we sell to Saudi or whatever the hell it is.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll send you an invoice. It's on its way.
Legit.
Yeah.
So I see on the website you guys also deal with thermal. Maybe let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
What's that kind of market like?
Yeah, so thermal right off the bat, because it's all digital, it's all sensors, it's all that sort of stuff. There isn't a lot for us to do in the supply chain there. So when it comes to thermal, we're just resellers. What I mean by that is another company does all the building assembly and all that sort of stuff. We bring it in as a dealer, and then we sell it to customers. That said, some devices we come in, we look at it, go, hey, this could have been done better. Pull it apart, change the O-rings out, loop this, loop that, and all of a sudden it's got better seal, more reliable, that sort of thing. So we will do some modifications like that to thermals, but for the most part, a thermal comes in a sealed package that leaves in a sealed package. But thermal's awesome. Like I was saying earlier, thermal is the future, and fusion, where it's a hybrid of the two, is the future. Those kind of systems are incredible to use and to work with. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch. You said thermal and what, and a hybrid of the two?
Thermal and night vision. So
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a few different ways that it's done. One is a thermal imager that goes onto the front of the night vision device. It would clip on here, and then using a projector, it would project the thermal image onto the front of the night vision device, and then that just goes through the tube as normal, right? So it would clip onto this ring here, and then project
Okay.
an image of the thermal, whatever it's seeing, in here. And then that allows you on the back end as the user to see a combination of night vision and thermal imaging. And then there's
overlaid over top of each other.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So with night vision, right? Like if it's hiding in the daytime, it's hiding in the nighttime too, right? Because we're amplifying light, but we're not doing anything crazy that's going to reveal the unseen, in terms of somebody who's like standing back in a tree line or something like that. Whereas thermal is detecting a heat signature, and that heat signature is immediately going to provide contrast. So it's
what sort
dramatic.
of distance? Sorry, what sort of distance are you talking about? Because you said it is only digital.
So thermal, depending on the quality of the sensor, the resolution of the sensor, you can detect a person at a kilometer. Pretty easy.
Oh wow! So thermal's quite different digitally than night vision is.
Significantly. So it still has a lot of the same limitations as night vision, but unlike night vision, where there's an analog version of it that's just better, there isn't an analog version of thermal that's better.
Right.
So all of the drawbacks that come with like screen refresh rate and processing speed, well, there's no alternative. That's just how thermal works.
It's just the way it is. Okay.
Yeah. And thermal's gotten
speaking
better
of that, Boone's wondering what kind of refresh rates are you looking at on thermal?
So most modern, like current production thermals, are in the 50 hertz to 60 hertz range, which is kind of
that's not bad at all.
That's an okay computer monitor. Now the other thing you have to keep in mind is that that's the screen refresh rate. Different thermals will have image processing software that it also needs to have. So it's not just the refresh rate, but it's also how fast can it process the image to get it to the screen. So there's.
So are we talking like milliseconds of lag, or are we talking like
on new stuff?
Nanoseconds.
It's pretty quick.
It's a couple of milliseconds, or okay.
Yeah,
that's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not. It's still at the point where some people can wear it head mounted and be okay with it. Other people wear it head mounted and go, "Oh, this makes me sick and dizzy."
It gets them all woozy.
Yeah.
When it comes to the resolution of thermal, like I'm looking right now, I'm seeing like 650 by 512. Is the thermal resolution different than what we're used to, like seeing like 1080p resolution?
So there's actually going to be two resolutions on any thermal you look at. The one is going to be the sensor resolution, which is that 640/512 number. That's pretty common, or it'll be somewhere in that range, depending on who's making the microbolometer for the thermal. They're all going to have different resolutions of the sensor itself. So there's that resolution there, which is the input. And then the second part of that, you'll see there's going to be a screen resolution, which is going to be the resolution at your eyepiece. And the higher resolution that also helps, especially when you're magnifying it. Right. So if you've got a magnified scope behind your thermal device, when you magnify it, if you've got a lot of like fairly large pixels, all of those pixels grow and grow, and the finer the detail on that screen is, the less of that there is. But yeah, the sensor resolution makes a difference as well, for sure.
Yeah, because I'm just seeing
we're looking. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, you go ahead. I've talked a lot. You can throw a question in.
Well, that's sarcasm and not true. Go ahead.
So 640 is kind of the common one. There's not, unless you go to like a higher FLIR military level unit, that's going to be about what you would see. So people shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I don't want to call it state of the art, but that's pretty much where it is for the commercially available ones right now. As you get into larger and larger thermals, like for example, Rochester Precision Optics makes thermal windows that are like this big, right? Nobody's strapping that on their rifle. Nobody's strapping that on their head. That's being put on a vehicle, and those will often have a cooled thermal sensor that's really high resolution, and having a cooled sensor just allows it to be that much more precise. Having a larger window allows it to gather a lot more information. Those can see for huge amounts of distance. Yeah.
But I'm just looking at your Ricoh RH50 thermal imaging scope, and like it's saying, 640 by 512. I mean, well, that's 480p. So like that's not bad when you're talking about thermal imaging. Like you don't need to see like the pores on their skin in thermal resolution, and also a display resolution that's a little better than 720p. So like that doesn't seem bad at all. In fact, it seems quite good. I would have expected lower than that.
And what you have to factor in too is like these screens are on an eyepiece that's not that large, right?
Yeah.
Like, and your eye relief on like a thermal optics, like something like this, you're not that far away from it. So that screen looks fairly large when you're right behind it. And if you look at, I mean, if you're on the website right now, if you were to look at something called the P Falcon V2.
Where would I see that? Here, you know what? Hang on a second. Let's do this for our listeners too. I'm going to just share our screen here.
Chris, you got it?
Yeah.
You do the things.
Am I on the right page here?
You're in night vision devices there. So if you go night vision thermal,
I was in thermal a second ago. Sorry.
If you go to the top left tab, and you go to thermals.
Am I in the right spot now?
Yep, that looks right. Scroll down a bit.
P Falcon right here.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the V2 it'll be just under $8,000. But if you look at the specs on that, the sensor's 640 by 480, but the display on it is actually a 1440 by 1080 OLED.
Oh yeah, that's 1080.
It's a really good. Yeah, it's a really good display.
Yeah,
interesting. 0.71 inch ammo LED 1440 by 1080.
Yeah,
that is nice.
Yeah, like that's some pretty high resolution thermal stuff. I mean, I'm used to thinking about thermals like the Predator, it's not exactly like what sort of details do you really need to be able to see in thermal, but like that's pretty amazing.
And that is exactly right, because thermal can be used too, right? Like it doesn't have to be that's like you don't have to identify, but you can also just use it as a yes no. Hey, is there something out there? Well, I see a heat signature. There is something out there. And then you can figure out how to get closer to identify it or whatever else you need to do, right? So,
well, and I also noticed here it says human recognition 600 meter estimated, not meaning that you wouldn't be able to see the heat signature, but you can, like, I'm assuming that means you can clearly identify that this is a human being at 600 meters. Vehicle recognition at just over 1 kilometer, like that's actually pretty amazing.
Yep. There's some guys in Estonia who do a lot of really great content, and one of the things that they do a lot of content on is thermal detection, which is relevant because of what their neighbors are doing. But yeah,
why? What are their neighbors doing?
They're not getting along. I'll tell you that much.
Are they throwing parties late at night?
Yeah, and there's a lot of thermals being deployed over there.
Yeah,
but they do a lot of really great demo videos of like, hey, like this is XYZ device. Here we are testing it at these different distances, and some of the ranges that when conditions are right. So thermal needs contrast. So if the ground's really hot and it's pushing up towards body temperatures, thermals are going to have a hard time picking it up, particularly an uncooled like handheld or head mounted one. But if there's contrast, right? So if it's like a chilly fall day, you'll be able to pick stuff up. And if it's at night, particularly, that's when that contrast really pops, right? Because the whole planet starts to cool down, or at least half the planet.
I think I've seen
good
something like
distinction.
that.
Good distinction.
Video with, smoking, and they were saying you're supposed to smoke inside a Monster can, so that way
that sounds like the kind of content that they'd put out. Yeah, stuff reducing your light signature. They'll do. I think they did one where like it showed what like the facial recognition on an iPhone looks like under night vision. It's the big flashing strobe, right? So
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, IR is a crazy spectrum. People don't realize how much is there until you actually can see it.
Yep. Yeah, we were out at an astronomy place the other night. Just because there's supposed to be a meteor shower. We were doing a little bit of photography and this and that. But it's funny, put on the night vision, went, oh, there's a security camera there. There's a security camera there. There's a security camera there. Yeah,
Interesting.
because you can spot, because all of the low light security cameras are
They all
using
have IR
LEDs.
lights on them. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Okay,
Yeah.
hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Quickly, John Bergen's got a question. What is the average helmet-mounted thermal? Let's be honest here. Coyote size heat signature range. I don't know why he didn't just say it. I said it for him.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple 100 meters easy. Like no
Couple
problem.
100 meters. Wow.
Easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Because really, I think that would be the one application that everyone here on this side of the country would be interested in, is using this for coyote hunting.
Yep.
Yeah, if only it were legal, right? Like that would be. I think if they had made that legal, man, nighttime coyote and boar hunting would just go through the roof overnight.
Tourism industry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris,
Like,
bring up an important point that you may have glanced over. Thermals work in the daytime.
I'm still associating them with nighttime hunting. Whatever, Mike.
Yeah. So they do work better at night, just because.
Fuck you, Mike.
Because of contrast, but yeah, in the right conditions, you can absolutely use thermals in the daytime. You'll see it too with like search and rescue drones and stuff. They'll run those anytime. The one thing you got to do be careful with thermals in the daytime, right? Because they're picking up heat signatures. If you happen to turn that thermal towards the hottest thing in our solar system, you can very definitely damage the sensor, because it's just going to get overloaded, and it'll actually start to get some burns just from the amount of
really.
Yeah, well, because there's still a lens system that's focusing light, right? So
yeah, when we were talking about the night vision, you were talking about how like there are overload protection chips. I would have assumed that there would have been the same thing for thermal vision.
Yeah, not
maybe just
so
how the
much
technology works. It's not the same, obviously.
Yeah. And to be clear, night vision does have like bright source protection, but when I say bright source protection for night vision, like protect you from flashlights, it'll help protect you from like headlights. You take your night vision out in the daytime, you turn that on, you're not going to have night vision for very long.
you won't see.
Yeah.
It'll burn the sensor. You mean?
It'll burn that tube right out. Yeah, it'll overload it.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Don't use
So
that
what
shit during the day.
if you didn't use it to sear your retinas like tuna steaks by looking into the sun? What is like the average life of a tube?
So the average life of a tube depends on the manufacturer a little bit. I think L3 these days is rating them for about 20,000 hours of use.
That's a lot.
Photonus, I think, is about the 10,000 hour range, which is like that's nightly use for years on end.
Yeah.
To hit those kind of numbers, typically tubes reach the end of their life through misuse long before they reach the end of their life, because the tube is just no longer okay. But you'll get things like you see it all the time with LE and MIL devices where lasers, like full power lasers, get directed and swept across somebody's night vision, and a full power laser, because of how tight of a concentration it is, can absolutely put blemishes in it permanently, right? Because it'll burn out a portion of that photocathode.
Interesting.
Or just be like a little lightning bolt kind of pattern.
Yeah,
inside.
yeah. You get squiggly lines and stuff like that. Guys will forget their night vision devices on, pointed at a light source, and that light source will be forever imprinted in the phosphor screen.
Interesting. Now, in that case, you can just replace the tube, correct? You wouldn't need to replace the whole housing or the objective lens or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay, but that is the most expensive part of the unit.
That's the catch. Yeah, it's like we can replace that for you, but you damage the most expensive component.
Yeah.
To replace,
It's only $600 less than a whole new unit.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Boone had a quick question. How well do thermals handle cold weather? I think what he means is like the unit itself in the cold. I don't think he means
Yeah.
seeing in the cold.
So again, that depends on the unit itself. A lot of them will be rated down to like -20, -30. I think a lot of actual like mil spec mill use ones down to -40 at least for storage, if not operating.
Mhm.
Cold weather obviously affects circuit boards. It also affects batteries and battery life.
Yeah.
And
makes
electronics in
sense.
general. Everything gets a little slower in the cold, right? So, but yeah, you can use them in the wintertime for sure. I mean, that's honestly, it's a great use for it. You'll see it especially like search and rescue guys, right? In the wintertime, that heat signature of a person or animal is going to pop.
Hmm. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. Mike,
Just
did I?
and-
Sorry, I was going to say, did I shut up long enough and then I cut you off? So go ahead.
No, it happens. I think there's just that little bit of internet lag between all of us where I started to say and
Yeah.
you just finished what you were saying.
No, I time it.
Okay. I mean, your
Yeah.
timing's impeccable. I'll give you that.
I have to see if I can look it up. There's just on the topic of thermals in the winter. One of our customers shot a cool little piece of footage of it's fusion, so it's night vision and thermal, but he's out in the snow, and you can actually see on the thermal all of the footsteps
Oh wow.
because
Of an animal or of him?
of him in this particular case, but you can
Because
absolutely
of the
track
compression
animal
of the
as well.
snow?
Because of the way the snow gets compressed, it then retains heat differently.
Yeah.
And all of a
Wow,
sudden
that's
you can see
interesting.
every footstep in that snow.
That's interesting. I suppose the same wouldn't necessarily be true in sand. There would just be too much heat from the sand in
Yes,
general.
sand, I in my experience doesn't really hold it. But thermals, like even in a house, if you're walking around barefoot,
Yeah,
you're leaving a heat signature of exactly where your feet were.
I would imagine,
Um,
especially on tile or lino or something like that.
Yep, anything like that. Yeah, carpet less so, but still there.
Hmm.
There's even like a security risk. Some of those like cell phone thermal cameras that basically just plug into your like USB-C port.
Yeah, like FLIRs and the little
Yep.
FLIR cameras. Yeah.
If somebody behind you in line at the grocery store has one of those thermals, odds are they can pick up your pin pretty good. On the
Because when
keypad.
you press on the keypad, oh my God. Come on, you're making us paranoid now, Ray.
yeah.
There's a case
but-
for tapping instead of using your pin, huh?
Yeah. I don't know that it's a particularly common thing, but you can absolutely pull. I mean, it is a security risk at some like secure facilities too, right? Where if you've got a keypad to get through a door, somebody with a thermal goes,
And probably
okay,
from a fair distance as well, hey?
yeah, depending on the quality and the size of the keypad and the temperature differential. But not only like you can get not only like which keys were pressed, but because they start like cooling off in an
You
order
can
that you
tell
press
the
them,
order.
Sequence.
you can often get the sequence.
Okay,
At
I'm
least
going to go
at least
hang
have an
out at
educated
ATMs
guess.
this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start using a stick.
Yeah. To be clear, I'm not.
Hey,
I'm
come
not
on, Ray.
advocating-
I gotta pay for these P Falcons somehow. You know what they say? Always start your business venture with other people's money, right?
Yeah.
Or that's maybe not exactly what they meant.
How we acquire it, I believe, is very different in that phrase.
Yeah, I think the difference is knowledge and consent, maybe.
Yeah. What of
Yeah.
them?
Okay.
Just
Carry on.
jumping back onto night vision for a second. Like, if obviously everyone wants to use this as a head mounted unit, I'm guessing for the most part, what's the best way to set up a head mounted system?
So helmet is my 100% recommended. You're running around in the dark. You don't have perfect depth perception. You don't have great field of view. A helmet's just a good idea. It doesn't have to be a crazy helmet. It can be like just basically a bump helmet. It doesn't have to be ballistic or anything like that. But I've had enough concussions that I don't need any more. A helmet's helmet's a wise choice, just because it is, especially if you're not used to it, it is easy to trip over your own feet. And then from a helmet, you need a mount on the front of it. And then depending on the type of device, you either need an intermediary component called a J-arm, which some binoculars require. And then it's your device itself, which just locks into a dovetail on that mount. So it's not overly complex, right? So if I take here, this black's maybe hard to see, but so you've got a helmet here. It's got a shroud on it, and then you got a mount like this that just locks in at the bottom. And that's all there is to it. There's a little push button here that flips down, and then your night vision just locks into a dovetail here. And away you go.
And you can adjust that for like eye distance and all that fun stuff too.
Yeah, so I mean, if I just give a quick demonstration here. Right, if I make sure I'm kind of centered on the camera, I can rotate and you can see that I'm changing the angle there. So depending on the angle you want, you can slide it back and forth.
For eye relief, yeah.
Yep, and then I can move it up and down as
In
well.
case your eyes are positioned incorrectly on the front of your head.
Yep, it's extraordinarily rare that somebody has a head that's so out of spec that you can't get the adjustment. And then on the goggles themselves as well, like in this particular one, got a dial on the back here where there's a little bar that comes down. I don't know how well you can see that.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
But there's a bar, and that adjusts how far this pod can pivot. And then I rotate it in, that bar comes back up, and the pod can pivot, and that just controls the distance between your eyes.
Interesting.
So you can fine tune these things pretty good to fit just about anybody.
That's good. I've known a few bison heads in my day. It's nice to know that they can have night vision too.
So I got a question that's been bugging me forever. Is like stereotypically in video games when they flip on night vision, there's that little high pitched whine noise. Does it actually still make that noise, or have we gone past that?
So there's no power up noise to night vision. But what there is that high pitched little whine, which is I think it's probably where that like the Sam Fisher Splinter Cell sound, like that's the one, right? That right, and that's just kind of become stereotypical. The same way like pulling a sword out of a sheath has a certain sound in movies that it doesn't make in real life.
Yeah.
But there is that high pitched whine, and what that is that's coming from the auto gating power supply. So. And I can induce it on a set of tubes. I was demonstrating this to some guys earlier this week because they were asking about it. They're like, hey, like sometimes my tubes make these weird sounds. Like, is this something that we should be sending back for service? And I go, okay, like stand there with your tubes. And I had an IR flashlight, and then I kind of pointed it towards them, and all of a sudden the sound happened. They go, oh, like how do you do that? What it is there's a power supply on the tube that when it detects a lot of light coming in, it starts to intermittently cut the tube. And it does that in order to protect it from getting burnt.
Right.
And just like that old TV that you had in your house that had that high-pitched whine, the tube kind of puts off a similar high-pitched whine when that auto gating is happening.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Kurt, you have anything else to add to that, or
no? I'm just soaking it all in.
Did I shut up long enough for Mike to get through his questions?
You did.
Maybe
we covered pretty much everything I had in that list.
I feel so proud of myself.
That is like 6,000% more than I knew about in night vision and thermal than I did before. So I'm happy.
Awesome.
We're learning.
Well
I say that because we've also been on
new products.
Well, considering that I literally knew nothing about night vision and thermal before this, this was very informative for me. Actually, it was kind of neat to learn about.
Really neat.
I'm going to highlight the strangest comment of the night here before we move on and potentially wrap up. It's from this guy, Derek Lost Dicwa. Anyway,
you need to read this one like Cliff Clavin.
I cannot do Cliff Clavin.
That's a really hard voice.
It
Anyway,
is, yeah.
he says in Vietnamese culture, it is believed those who died violent deaths, especially away from home, would become ghosts in the afterlife. I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China or the cost of thermals in America.
That's the
But
red.
Yeah, it
night
must
vision.
when we were talking about the red the
Yeah,
red tubes.
the
the red
demon.
I'm
flash.
sure
Yeah.
that it was, but it still has very little to do with it. But thank you, Derek. We always value our listeners, and
Thanks, Cliffy.
thank you for participating in the conversation. And he's got more. It was a reference. Well, we knew that, Derek. Hey, if you want to contribute to the conversation, Derek, come on the show like a regular co-host. Anyway, Ray, what I always like to ask this kind of near the end of the show. What is one thing that the average public maybe misunderstands or flat out doesn't know about night vision or thermals that you absolutely wish that everybody knew?
Think back to the silly questions you get at gun shows and trade shows.
Yeah,
There's
well, I mean,
lots.
we definitely touched on some of them, right? Like, hey, is this legal? That sort of thing.
Mhm.
The biggest one that we get is about just tube generation, right? And I know we did touch on it a little bit here, but tube generation, we'll have guys come up to us at a show insisting that there's fourth gen. Yeah, kind of, but it's third gen where they just removed, like it's filmless Gen 3. It's not really any different. It's still Gen 3. The architecture hasn't really changed. And Gen 2 to Gen 3, again, isn't a huge, like it's not incredibly different in terms of its potential for capabilities. They're different. There's different architecture. It's like different photocathode, but they have the same kind of potential for capability with some differences. So Gen 2 for a long time was seen as just unusable, and you had to have Gen 3. And there was a time, probably 10, 15 years ago, where that was kind of true. But Gen 2, the manufacturers of Gen 2 tubes have gotten a lot better, and their manufacturing processes have gotten a lot better. So we've seen the performance of Gen 2 stuff really come a long ways, to the point where
Interesting.
a lot of the tenders that are coming out, even for the United States military, no longer specify what generation the tubes have to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting that the old generation technology has still continued to improve. That's kind of neat.
Yeah. I mean, so Gen 3 as well, like Gen 3 tubes were what were being issued in Desert Storm in the early 90s, right? Like, yes, the manufacturing processes have gotten better, and they've done some things here and there to improve things like the gain and that sort of stuff. But the overall technology, it's pretty much the same. Like in its essence, it's the same as what it was then. It's just they're making it better.
Yeah,
It's
probably a
essentially
lot to
been a
do with.
change in form since this. I think World War II was when it first was remotely viable. I think Germany had, like, it's called Vampire or something.
Yeah.
And you had like a giant spotlight, and it was just using analog tubes. And it's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and what they do is they'd stack a series of tubes kind of in sequence for a cascade effect of this tube would amplify it a little bit, this tube would and it kind of would pass that down the chain to try to get something that was workable. But yeah, Gen 2 to Gen 3, like there isn't a massive difference in how those tubes are like structured and what they do. Like it's a very small difference in terms of just some of the architecture and some of the components.
Cool.
Scott came late to the show.
Yeah, he sure did come late to the show, boy. Come on, Scott, get with the program. Ray, why don't you plug Opfor, give the website, give how people can contact you. If you have social medias, give the whole shebang.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's nightsolutions.ca. That's the website. That's the web store. If you guys have questions or anything like that, you can reach out on Facebook. It's Opfor Night Solutions. We're on Instagram, same thing, or info at nightsolutions.ca. That's the email that all of us monitor all the time at the shop. It's constantly being watched. So questions come in, we always do our best to not just answer them, but answer them quickly. Yeah, and we're doing a lot of big things in the night vision industry that we're really excited about. We're excited to bring quality night vision assembly and manufacturing here to Canada. So that's the goal for us.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. No question. Well, thanks a lot, Ray, for coming on and sharing all the informations about night vision and thermal. This is a really interesting conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Everybody else, if you're still watching us, you can check out the show, facebook.com/BS podcast, and leave a review and let us know how awesome we are. Also, if you like the content, please leave a like on the page and share the page around, especially to everybody. Also, email us any questions you might have. You can email us at info@bspodcast.ca. You can check out our website at bspodcast.ca. You can find us on YouTube at YouTube/@BS_podcast. And as always, a massive thank you to all of our sponsors and all of our viewers. Without you guys, we wouldn't have a show in the first place. We're talking about Shane and Steve, Miles, Carrie and Cappy, Duncan and Rob, Phil, Doug and Nisa, Vanya and Carly, Oscar and JR. Thank you all an immeasurable amount. And big thank you to Ray from Opfor Night Solutions for coming on the show and informing all of us about cool ways to see things that you can't see with the naked eye. What do we have next week, Mike? Do we know yet?
I don't know yet. We're in the process.
I fucking have anything to do with this shit. Like, just so everybody knows, like the rock stars behind the scenes these days, the reason we still have shows, it's all Mike and Derek. So
100%.
Send an email to Banyak, BANYAK @bspodcast.ca and let those two know how awesome they are, because they're kind of knocking it out of the park, lining up people like Ray and all the other guests that you've seen over the last, how long has it been now? 6-8 months?
I don't know. Yeah.
We're coming up on a year now. This is amazing. So I think that's going to basically do it for tonight. Make sure you guys tune in next week when we have a currently unknown amazing guest, but I guarantee that Mike and Derek will knock that one out of the park too. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you all next week.
But some of these bullets, as you saw, have an incendiary device on the tip of it, which is a heat-seeking device.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome to your weekly dose of BS, the Ballistically Speaking podcast.